forge going. Let's see how many people log on without me actually telling everybody that we had a live stream going, other than the people who watched the last one. We will see what happens. There's one person. Well, what's up? Glad you're here. What's up, man? Hello back at you. So, as we start, what's up, John? As we start getting people on here, we'll start some talking. One of the things that I'm working on tonight, so I've got a few things going. This is what's up, Jason? It's going good. I'm going to be talking during this one, plus doing another little process in the background. I'm working on one of the knives that I'm not actually filming the process on because it's just one that's made for me. And I know a lot of people probably want me to make one of these on the videos, so I might end up making another one. I don't know just yet. What's up? What's up? So I've got to go ahead and do the heat treat process on this knife, and I'm still working on the guard. I'll show you all this. I've got material to remove still, but that's the D-guard right there that we worked on in the last live stream. Of course, cut off the end here. Now, it's not going to be tall in the back like this. It's actually going to be about the same height as the actual handle on there, but that turned out real nice for the guard for the big bolo knife. I think that's going to look real good. So got a little bit more work, a little bit more fine tuning to do this one. We're going to do that during this live stream. Plus, I'm going to be doing the heat treat process on this knife right here. So y'all haven't seen this one. I did post a little video of it, picture of it in the TRE Workshop Facebook page. This was one that I was just messing around with off camera. It's one that I'm making for myself, and it's a pretty cool little knife here. So a good profile, integral, nice and straight, and this is fully forged, other than of course me just cleaning up the profile here and the profile on the edge, but that's fully forged. Only hammers have touched, hammer and anvil have touched the sides of it, and the whole entire transition into the handle, and then of course the whole entire handle, that's all hammer and anvil. No hardy tools, nothing, just different hammers, anvil, different parts of the anvil, all that stuff. What's up, Pinto? So this is one of those ones that I was just working on my, hammer technique and everything like that, and I have a blast making these. And just to give you an idea of what this started out as, this was turned into this. So I've got a bunch of these little guys right here. So 5160 round bar, 5/8 of an inch thick, forged. This out of one of these. That's how much you can move the material whenever you want to. And in the last video, the last Shop Talk Tuesday live stream, I talked about the benefits of being able to do some forging. What's up, Jason? The benefits of being able to do some of the forging processes versus just stock removal. You can never stock removal this piece of steel into this knife. No matter how good you try, that's never going to happen. Now, again, that doesn't discredit stock removal. Stock removal is for different parts of the knife making process or the whole entire knife making process. But if you want to make something like that, you have to be able to forge it. And that's just developing another skill set within knife making. That's all that is. It's not one way or the other way, or forging or the highway or whatever you want to say it's just different processes in it. What's the thickness of the blade roughly? I'll check. So let me see here. I've got my little about a 16th. It's about a 16th at the cutting edge. So the actual edge itself is about a 16th, and then of course the spine is thicker and it tapers from here down to the 16th at the tip. So it's got that distal throughout the spine, and then 16th all the way down the edge. And once you get comfortable with forging, once you get that process going, then you could do stuff like this. Because I mean, that's a 16th all the way down. And again, that's just hammer and anvil on the sides there. It's just getting comfortable with your hammer blows, doing your planishing process. I talk about that a lot, and managing the heat. Whenever you are getting everything that smooth, you're not getting it glowing orange. You're not bringing it up to like 1600 degrees plus. You're not bringing it up to forging temperatures. All you're doing is bringing it up enough to make it soft enough so that your hammer work does its job, but you're not making it too crazy. You're only bringing it up to maybe 1400 degrees, even colder than that sometimes, whenever you're just doing the planishing, because all you're trying to do is straighten. You're not trying to actually move a bunch of material. You're just trying to flatten things. But got to do the actual heat treat process on this before I grind anything on here. I will be cleaning up the bevels. I will be coming in here and grinding in the bevels just a little bit because I want to thin that edge down a little bit more. There's going to be a lot of forge texture up here in the actual spine area, so I'm not going to thin that out very much. I'm probably only going to bring the bevels up to about just over half on this, because whenever if I bring it up half here, by the time I get to the tip, it's going to be all the way up here. So it's just really going to be flat area for the most part in this little area here, and then all the rest of it is going to be, of course, bevels and all that stuff. And then I'll end up doing a vinegar soak etch with this, which will get rid of all of the forge scale plus do the finish that I want, and then we'll Scotch-Brite pat it back to a satin finish. But I'm going to bring it down to a pretty fine edge. It'll probably be something similar to that right there. That's the overall goal. And I might even do that finish on here, just a nice stonewash finish. But I'm going to bring it down pretty thin. It's pretty similar to the thickness of this little guy right here on the actual bevels and everything, where it's going to be going. It's one of my favorite knives right there. Kershaw MagnaCut. Yes. So I'm going to be going ahead and heat treating this. We got to start off. I've already annealed it once. If you're curious about the whole annealing process, all that is bringing it up over 1600 degrees, letting it cool inside the forge or vermiculite or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and now do a, kind of like your thermal cycling, those phases there. But really what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and bring it up to 1600 degrees, let it cool outside the forge. I've got to let it cool in an area where the fan's not blowing so that it doesn't cool too fast. But you want to be able to bring it up 1600 degrees, let everything relax, let it cool outside the forge. And then like I do on pretty much all my 5160 knives, I do that process, and then I go ahead and bring it up to right at about 1400 degrees, and then we'll let it cool in steel air again, and then we quench it. 1525 degrees. You'll probably only see the actual like thermocycling, normalizing / grain refinement cycles in this, because you got to let it cool down before you put it back in there. But we're going to go ahead and put it in there now while I'm talking to y'all. I've already got my forge warmed up so y'all can actually see. Forge is full temp so that we don't have any cold spots in there or anything like that. So it's already brought up to temp before we actually do this step. So let's see here. How long did the forging take you? So when it comes down to forging, so when it comes down to forging, sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's longer. So if I was to, let's say if I had just a big chunk of steel that I wanted to make that knife out of, and I was going to work on the grinder forever, getting it ground down to that, it would take a long time. If I'm forging something that is already flat, so let's say I'm forging, what we got here? It's a big chunk of 26C3 right there. So let's say I was taking and I wanted to make something like that out of here. It would not take long for me to forge this bar into a profile like that at all. Because whenever you get used to the whole forging process, if I was going through that, I mean, y'all saw me forge a whole entire blade to profile. I actually probably have that over here too. So we're watching that. Don't want to let anything get away from you. Hold on. I got a shift. So whenever I'm doing this, just to give you all an idea, so I typically will use newer steels that I'm getting used to, one of these little high temp laser thermometers and all that. Once you get used to doing a certain steel so much, you'll get used to the color that you're looking for. And what you end up trying to go for is a nice uniform temperature, a uniform color in it. You don't want any cool spots. You want to be able to make sure everything's nice and good, even. Nope. Okay. That's good. It's off in an area where I don't have, the fan blowing, so that, there we go. All you're looking for is that particular color. Get it nice and even all the way across there, then take it out. So for one like this, I have a lot of people that will ask me, why don't I hang the blades? Because if you put it on something that is going to suck the heat out of it, it's going to start bending it and things like that. Those fire bricks that are up here are nice and toasty. If I was to just put my hand on the fire brick, it'd burn my hand. Fire brick, not fire brick. It would burn my hand. So I always put them on top of that, let them cool, because they'll cool at a good rate. Sometimes I'll hang them and things like that, but I don't always like drilling the holes through everything to be able to hang them or have a bunch of clamps and all that stuff. If I'm doing a batch of knives and I don't have the surface area for that, then I go through and I hang them from this bar right here on hooks. So that bar that goes right across there, that I've got hooks that just hook onto the knife, and they just hang there. So if I'm doing like 5 or 6 knives and I need to have the area to let them hang, that's all I'll do for it. So let's see here. Still using the same Willys 5160. Yes, I do still use the same Willys 5160. So give y'all a little spin around here, the little area that y'all don't typically see. So back here, still got a big old chunk of that Willys Jeep leaf spring. Still painted, OD green and everything. But yeah, got a big chunk. I've used a whole entire one of these already. And then I've got some of that. This leaf spring that's back here, the big one, that you really can't see very well. That's one of the ones that these chunks like this came off of. So that is, I've used 2 of those. They're off of an old Ford. And then I've got a whole bunch of extra leaf spring down here. That's a little bit more of the Willys Jeep. This is that's the big coil, one that's over an inch, that I do some of the integrals off of. So I've got those, and yeah, I use the heck out of them. This right here, this is going to go on one of the knives that I'm doing. You see all the strands. So this is some wrought iron off of a carriage wheel, more or less. A lot of all the little strands and fibers that are in there. So this is going to become a guard and a pommel. Whenever you acid etch this for a really long time, all of those like strands start dissolving, and you'll actually see all the fibers through it. So that's going to be really cool whenever we get that made into a knife. I tried to forge that stuff into a billet, and that didn't work out super well. It was one of those deals where whenever I was forging it, you got to be real finicky and real particular whenever you're forging. Forge welding wrought iron into something. It's definitely a lot easier if you have a press. It's a lot easier. Well, everything's a lot easier if you have a press or a power hammer. But I don't have a press or a power hammer. You know what I do have? I have an arm and hammer. So, what I was going to say earlier, this is one of the ones that we forged in one of the videos that we did, the live streams. And I haven't even finished turning this into a knife yet, but we did that in less than an hour, forged it out, and that was with me talking the entire time and explaining things and all that stuff. When if I was to just forge this and I wasn't talking and I wasn't trying to explain anything, I would have probably finished the whole forging process on this in like maybe 45 minutes. And it didn't require me to use any angle grinders. It didn't require me to use my portaband saw. It didn't require me to use my 2x72. It didn't require me to create a bunch of dust anywhere. It didn't require breathing things. Didn't require any of that stuff. It just required putting this into the forge, pulling it out, hammering on it, putting it back in the forge, pulling it out, hammer on it, things like that, to be able to get a knife profile. It's that easy. And I just personally think it's pretty cool. Let's see what we got here. Let's read these. Don't forget the pinto sauce. No, we're going to be doing the pinto sauce. Indiana. Rebuilding my ribbon burner. But if I see a video about your forge last week, yeah, I think you really should. Built a bill hook using a leaf spring from a Studebaker. Nice. And yes, yeah, that's the Power Hammer 1, and I'm not really left-handed. I could probably forge with my left hand, but I'm not going to try that. Pinto sauce is a, it's, yeah. Pinto doesn't really let me, you know, tell everybody what the sauce is. If he decided to tell you what it is, then cool. But the thing is, it's let's just say it's a fire hazard. Now, whenever I end up doing the video where I quench the knife in pinto sauce, I'll explain what that is. But I want to be able to do an actual video on it so that you can do it the right way and not catch your shop on fire, if that makes sense. He swears by it, so I'm going to go ahead and try it. Now, without just sitting here talking, ranting, and all that crap, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was I've got a few different projects that I want to work on, and I'm saving them a little bit for after the Samurai Challenge because I want to be able to really get into them and have fun with them and all that stuff. But I'm going to be doing parts of those builds on the live streams. And I'm going to be picking a day. I don't know exactly which one it's going to be, but I'm going to do one of those, like, we could call it like a 12-hour challenge or something like that. I saw the guys that did the 48-hour dagger challenge. Jason Knight did a live stream throughout the day where he did like 20 minutes here, 30 minutes here, 20 minutes there, an hour here, things like that, where he live streamed what he was doing in the process. And I think I'm gonna pick a day and I'm gonna do a kind of like a one-day challenge where I forge knives out of, let's say I take one of these guys right here and I turn it into a full integral knife, like one of those, or a chef's knife or something like that. Or I could even do a knife that has handles on it, whatever it may be. And I'm going to live stream during the day. Whenever I'm actually working on the thing, I'm just going to live stream it. So there might be like a 1 hour break here and there, but it's going to be me out in the shop, working, making the knife, doing a whole entire day, almost like a 24-hour challenge if you just want to call it that. And I'm going to make a complete knife in one day and show it to y'all, the whole entire process, everything, me sketching things out, drawing, rambling, mumbling, all that crap, so you can actually see it. And the cool thing is, because it's a live stream, after I close out the live stream, you'll be able to watch all those videos at any point, you know, from that point forward, because those live streams become videos that you can watch after the fact. But I'm going to show y'all the entire process. It's going to be, some of it's just going to be me doing this. Just you ready for it? You ready for how interesting this is going to be? I'm just going to, 1 second. Yeah, I think, where did I put that thing over here? Okay, no, I think I can get it from over here. Nope. No, that's what it was. You're going to see a lot of that shit. So, where I'm just kind of like, on camera, I make it work, and I'm able to edit out all the random shit, you know, where you accidentally throw a hammer across the room or whatever it may be. I tend to edit a lot of that stuff out, but I'm gonna have all of that in the video or in the live stream and everything. It's gonna be it's gonna be some fun stuff, but I'm gonna try and have that all done. I've got a few other things that I want to film that aren't really knife making related. Like whenever I put the doors up in this, I'm going to show y'all that process. This door right here, I was going to buy a door that had a window, but I'm not going to buy a door that has a window. I'm just going to go through and they sell windows that you can install indoors. So basically you can cut a hole in the door and put a window in it. So I'm going to go ahead and show y'all how to actually do that. And the whole point behind that is I want a lot of light in my shop right now. It's all just walls, no windows. So we're going to do windows over here and those doors, and then the wall that's behind the camera here that has all my belts and everything on it. I'm going to be doing a set of French doors right there so that I can walk in between the two shops without having to go outside if I don't want to. And then I'm going to show y'all the process of building a wood burning stove. I'm going to build one from scratch. I'm not going to buy one for the winter here because we're supposed to have a ridiculous winter. For some reason, my town is supposed to have like some of the hottest days in freaking country and some of the coldest days. We're supposed to get into a bunch of negative degrees during the winter and stuff like that. It's supposed to be like an extreme cold because of how hot it was or some BS. So I'm just going to make sure that I have ways to heat this. And y'all are also going to see me remodel the other shop. I've got to finish gutting it. I've got to insulate it, sheetrock it, do all of that stuff, run extra power, all that stuff. Y'all are going to see that during the winter because it's going to be nice and cool for me to actually be able to do a lot of that stuff. And I'm going to accomplish a lot. It's going to be pretty nice. I think that it's going to be fun, and I think everybody's going to like it. Now, I had asked y'all to like give me a suggestion for things to talk about during this, but like nobody said anything. So that's why I decided I would go ahead and, you know, show y'all where we're at on certain things and work on the heat treat process for that knife. You're amazed by how clean my shop looks. I mean, it's kind of clean right now, but I also, I'm one of those guys that before, if I wrap up a project, I need to clean the shop before I start the next project. Now, sometimes that is, I'll just work until I'm done with that particular step in the build. Sometimes it's the whole project. But let's say I was working on doing blades and I got done with the grinding one night and like grinding bevels, all that stuff. And the next day I was gonna be working on heat treating and finishes and stuff like that. Well, then I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna clean everything the next morning. So a lot of people, what they'll do, they'll work in their shop. Then I say a lot of people don't clean their shops, but there's a portion of people out there that do their project and then instantly clean things up, and then they'll come back in the next morning and they'll wonder why their shop is still dusty. And a lot of that is because you needed to clean the next day. So you got to let everything settle, everything come down, settle, all that stuff. Then you can come in, you can wipe everything down, clean everything, and there's not going to be more dust and, you know, debris and everything collecting everywhere. So clean it the day after you do that dirty, crazy project, especially if you're working on handle material. Clean your shop the day after you finish the handle material, and that way all that dust can settle, and then you'll be able to clean all your surfaces. What I do is I take my leaf blower and I blow everything out. Makes life a lot easier. And then I go through and I vacuum, and then I sweep and do all that stuff. I have kids, I've got little ones, and it's nice for them to be able to come out here and walk around and not worry about getting completely dirty or stuff like that. I understand. Roof caved in, no doors. Yep. And then they build it all up. And then let's see here. Texas only needs furnaces about a week a year. Well, there are times whenever that's a thing, but in the past few years, we've been absolutely getting crazy freezes, especially where I'm at. So where I am, almost Oklahoma. If you drive about 25 minutes north, you go across the Red River and you're in Oklahoma. So, yeah. I am right where the plains like are about to fall off. I'm right there. And so elevation wise, we're pretty high. And what happens with my particular town is it gets extremes. So last week on like Thursday, we were the hottest town in the United States. Think about that. There's like deserts and shit. And we were still the hottest town in America that day. And that happens all the time. We held the record for the most days, over like 110. It's ridiculous. So we have that, and then we'll have winters that happen to where it is like negative 10 degrees for like a month and a half. Like, it is absolutely absurd. The power grids are shutting down. It's absolutely ridiculous. So we have times where we need furnaces and heaters and stuff like that. I tend to use my fireplace a lot. That's a big thing for me. I get wood, use my fireplace because it's a lot cheaper than electricity. Use a magnet in a bag to pick up the metal. Yeah, that's actually a good idea too. Belt sander has rollers. Yeah, so as y'all have seen my little situation here, all I do is move my little water bucket out of the way, and then I roll this wherever I want it to be for whatever tool I'm going to be using that's on here. So I always suggest to put everything on wheels. So I can use quarter band saw all the way around it. You know, I've got a little knife vise that I'm making right here that will actually swivel so I can do work on handles out of a vise that broke on me. I've got another sanding vise right there, and then of course the benchtop drill press. I've got my, there we go. So, what's up, Matt? So, you got my Fordham back here so that I can attach things down into that vise and then use the rotary tool. And then, of course, the 2x72. And I've got a big magnet on the back side on the actual workbench for the 2x72 so it collects a lot of the metal shavings as I'm actually using this. And then I'll take and I'll clean this. So this is just off of a little bit of what I was doing today. So it kept all of that from going into the air and flinging around, which is pretty nice. And all that is it's mounted at an angle behind the drive wheel, and it just collects dust. But I would always suggest, I suggest you put things on wheels anyways. The big reason why I put things on wheels is so that I can get good lighting angles. That's the whole point. The reason why my anvil right here, if you look down there, anvil rocks over, it's on casters. So if I need to move these, all I do, rock it over, move it to where I want it to be, pull it back out to where I want it to be, set it down, use it, call it good. Wheels, they help you. My whole entire forge area on wheels. I can take it, roll it outside, put it wherever I want to put it, on wheels. So whether you are having a film or you're not having a film, put as many things on wheels as you can, especially if you have a shop like this. I luck out, and even though my shop is small, to me, it's actually a good size shop to probably a lot of people who want to make knives, especially seeing how this is kind of like my, I wouldn't say it's my auxiliary shop, but it's not my only shop. But if you actually see how much room it is, it's plenty of space for me to be able to do everything that I need to do. I've got a big 13-inch long workbench, 13 feet long workbench, and then I've got plenty of room, plenty of wall space, all that stuff. So I like that. And then of course I have the other shop that is behind this shop, behind that wall right here. I've got that whole entire shop, and it is absolutely awesome. So I can't really complain about having the space that I have right now. Do I want more? Yes, but I will get more. There are so much room for activities. I will get more whenever I finish this, which is happening very soon. So whenever I get to open that, I've got another, show y'all this. Don't mind the shopping cart that's back here. I found it in the alley. See if y'all can actually see this. Yeah, shopping cart, car front bumper. But I have this whole entire pad here that is 8 feet from that wall to here by 16 feet long. So that's huge. I've got an awning that's going to come off the front here, and I'll have that. And then one of the other things that I'm going to be working on, y'all don't really get to see very often because I use it for a bunch of storage. I've got a huge shelter in the ground here, and that is going to be a basement to the extension that's coming off of this side of the shop. So there's going to be an extension that is that big on this side of the shop, and the storm cellar will be down in the bottom of it. So that's gonna be pretty cool. There's like 6 people left. Like, we don't care about that shit. But I'll put y'all back on here. And let's see what our temp is now. Yeah, we're good to go ahead and back in the forge again. So let's light the forge back up and bring it up to temp. So, move things out of my way. I'm not hopping over everything trying to get to this. All right, there we go. So, watch now that I'm back in the shop, watch the amount of people watching automatically goes back up. They're like, we don't want you to go outside. Don't go outside. But, gonna go ahead and leave the plastic up through the winter. So, no, that will be gone whenever I put the doors in. So now that it's cool enough, I'm going to go ahead and install them. The way that I look at this, I wanted everything to be comfortable for as long as possible, but I was not about to screw with all of this when it was like ridiculously hot and I already had to work on all the projects and all of that stuff. I didn't want to have to deal with that. Plus, you know, there has to be a return on your investment for anything that you do, and buying all of these doors and doing all that stuff, dude, French doors, especially exterior French doors and even interior French doors, and doing all that stuff, doing the remodeling for the other shop, everything, all that costs a lot of money. And the way that I want everything to be is I want to be able to just do everything and not pull any money out for it or anything like that. So you just got to make sure that the knife sales were right, the YouTube revenue was right, all that stuff's good, and then I go ahead and pull the trigger on some of this stuff. Because the difference between me buying a tool, so I buy a tool or I get a tool, I use the tool, and, you know, I'll be able to make a YouTube video about it, I'll be able to recoup some of that cost. Maybe let's say it's sponsored, it's a sponsored equipment, something like that. I get to recoup that cost. If I am going through and doing something like the remodeling or the building of the shop and all that, that's purely just cost. There's no real revenue return on that. There would be if people were interested in watching me really do that stuff, but whenever I show y'all the process of me putting these doors up or putting the other doors up, or doing any of that remodeling, those will probably be the least viewed videos on my channel. So you don't really get much return on that investment. So I needed to make sure that I sold enough knives, that I made enough income to be able to do those things, because it's got to make sense. You know, the last thing you want to do is have a business that just costs you money that you don't make any money off of. That's horrible. That's a nightmare. It's not a business, that's a hobby. Hobbies cost you money. They don't make you money. For me, I need for this to be able to, you know, recoup any of the profit or income that I put into it or cost that I put into it. I got to get that back out. So with the heat and with everything, wasn't there. So now we are getting close to being able to do all that stuff, and I'm really excited about it. Just leave it up till next spring. You say that, but Matt, okay. So if y'all don't know who Matt Rich is, Mr. MC Rich right here, he was the guy that went with me to Blade Show and Blade Show, Texas, and you know we did all that stuff. Now he came down, hung out, we did some stuff, did some cool stuff in the shop, all that thing. We made a couple of things, and he has asked me like 45 times when the doors are going up. So yeah, you might say you might say that that you need the doors up, or that you would wait till spring. Man, if I waited till next spring, you would be on my ass all the time. So yeah, no, I've got to get those put up. I want that exterior space. It's absolute must. So let's see if the forge is on. Let it warm up just a little bit more, and then we'll go ahead and put the knife back in there and do the second step. Now remember, first step was bring it up to 1600 degrees and then let it cool, and the second step is going to be right about 1400 degrees, let it cool. You can do as many grain refinement cycles as you want, but me, I do a normalizing cycle, which is pretty similar to an annealing cycle, but slightly different. Annealing cycle, again, bring it up to that 1600 degrees, let it cool inside the forge, or vermiculite, something that's going to let it cool really, really slow, make it nice and soft. Normalizing, you're bringing it up to 1600, then you're letting it cool just outside the forge. It's going to cool faster than, of course, if you left it in the forge or did vermiculite. And then you're going to do your grain refinement cycle, which is going to be bringing it up to 1400 degrees and then letting it cool again. You can do as many grain refining cycles as you want. You can bring it up to 1550, let it cool, 1500, let it cool, 1475, let it cool, 1450, let it cool, 1425, let it cool, 1400, let it cool, 1350, let it cool, 1300, let it cool, 1250, let it cool. And I'm not kidding. You can go all the way down to that temp and let it cool if you want to. So you can sit there and do as many grain refinement cycles as you want. I only really need those couple, and just remember, again, different stills require different things. This is 5160. It's one of the most forgiving stills that you will ever mess with. It's a beast to forge, but 5160 is easy. It has a very broad heat treatment process. There are people who have heat treated it, quenching it at 1575 degrees all the way down to 1450 degrees, and they got decent results. A lot of the different spaces in between that. So it's a very forgiving steel. The reason why I do my annealing process after forging is I want to relax the steel a lot, because we just, for one, put it through hell, beating the hell out of it. Plus, it was most likely a spring that was on somebody's car for a while, a long time, so I had a lot of abuse. I want to take all that abuse out of it, and then I'll go through and do some profiling, do things like that, and then I'll go ahead and do my normalizing cycle, which is bringing it up to that 1600, letting it cool outside, still air, then bring it up to 1400, let it cool again. That's all I want. One normalize, one grain refinement, then bring it back up to 1525, quench that bad boy. Let's get it back in the forge. Remember, if y'all are going to do any of these steps, that you need to make sure that your forge is brought up to temp before you put the steel in it. A lot of people that I see on YouTube videos feel like they don't do that. But I also see some people quench. They take their steel out, magnet test that bad boy, dunk that motor on it. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to lie to you. Half the time, steel's like that color with like a little bit of orange on the outside. And I know that lighting does mess with a lot of things, but if you've got like orange around it and no orange in the center, if you can see the orange, You know, typically whenever the colors change, the whole entire thing changes color. But and I know that some of the thinner areas will stay what they are, but typically what happens is the outer edges will get darker before the center edge. The center edge will stay orange longer because it is typically holding the most temp, and the outside edges get cool fast. But I'll see people where the center is this color and the outer edges are orange, and they magnet test that bad boy and they dunk it in motor oil. And I'm like, how in the world is that heat treated? How did you even go through that? And most of the time they're working with like 52-100 bearing races, or they're working with like 1095. Those are finicky. Those are not easy. Those are finicky seals. All right. Flip it once. Make sure everything's good. Even. And out. Back up. Cool. So we are normalized and grain refined. What's the big difference between, okay, did I answer that whenever I was talking about that? Because I know that you had posted that just a minute ago. Sounds like Eric needs a hammer in and Torrance dog. Yes. Yes, I do. Hopefully I explained that a little bit more, Ian, the difference between grain refinement and annealing. So there is a huge difference between annealing and grain refinement. So what would be more similar would be the annealing step and the normalizing step. That would probably be, out of those steps, the more, comparable steps, because again, you're bringing both of those up to basically the same temperature. Just whenever you're annealing, you're letting it cool really, really, really slow. Whenever you're normalizing, you're letting it cool a little bit faster because it's just in steel air, as opposed to in the hot forge or in vermiculite, which helps it, it's an insulator and it lets it keep that heat for a long time. So annealing is going to be up to the 1600, cooled really slow. Normalizing up to 1600, cooled a little bit faster, but still slow. You don't want to put it outside in a hurricane and let it cool really, really fast. And then you'll have your grain refinement cycles. Those are the steps that you do after that 1600 degrees. So that's the steps that you're going to sit there and you're going to try and really refine that grain structure as you're coming through before you heat it back up and you quench it. So there's a lot of books on that stuff. There's a lot of things that you can read. I'll tell you, Elijah over at Flower Creek Forge, he explains things like that real well. And, he's talking about all the metallurgy stuff, and he is awesome at that. So if you want to learn like the specific terminology for all of those things, Elijah at Fire Creek Forge. He's also the guy that, where is that bad boy at? Ah, there it is. He's also the guy that made my 5-pound rounding hammer. That guy. So if you ever wanted to really move steel, get yourself one of these big bastards. Okay? It might not look like it. Well, no, it definitely looks like it's huge. But you take this and like my regular rounding hammer, my 2.5 pound. It's huge. That's a big hammer. But I'll tell you this, once you get used to swinging it, and once your body builds up the ability to use this, you're going to put in less work over the duration of your forging, because it's just going to move the hell out of everything that you're moving. And it's kind of ridiculous. So let's see here. Can you talk more about the decarb layer after the quench? Okay, so typically the decarb layer is going to be really, really thin. So whenever I go through and I file that, I'm only filing a few thou off. It's almost nothing. But the thing is, you got to get through that layer, because what ends up happening whenever you go through and you try and file test it directly after the quench and you don't get through that decarb layer, you're going to go, and the first couple of files that go through it, they're going to go, that's not hard enough. It is biting the hell out of that with like a 65, then you go down to like a 60 and it's still biting, then you go down to a 55 and you're like, God dang, what the heck is happening here? And you're just, you got a dull noise, the file's biting into the steel. You got to get through that decarb layer before you file test it, before you hardness test it. And it's just a must. You have to absolutely do that in order to make sure that you don't force yourself to requench a piece of steel that is actually hardened, but you're just sitting there, you know, filing, and you're not really getting anything out of it. So I always take a good Nicholson file, take that decarb layer off the edge, then file test it, and we're good. It's just the better way to do it and make sure that you're actually going to get a nice hardened blade and out of one quench instead of sitting there in multiple quenches and all that. Now, if y'all remember, again, this one, this big son of a gun that I, got my D-guard made for. Boop, that guy right there. This one was quenched, and then I went through and file tested it. Everything was good, and I went ahead and I tempered it. Whenever I tempered it, it brought it down too far, so I had to requench it. And whenever I requenched it, the edge was the hardness that I wanted. So then I just did a blue backing where I softened the ricasso and the whole entire spine. You can see right here, see the two different colors between the shininess and the dull that's right here. That whole entire area that you see there, you can see right here too, that dull area right there. That's everything that was softened, so the whole entire spine, and the edge was nice and hard. So one of the things that you could do, let's say you're going to do something like this, but you still wanted to temper it, but you didn't want to risk making it too soft. You can temper it at like 100 degrees and do that for 2 hours, and you'll get some of the benefits from the tempering without drawing back the heat or drawing back your hardness. Or you could just do the softening of the spine and call it done. And then let's see here, yep. And then I'll tell you, if you're gonna go through and do the heat treating process like this with the forge, again, I've said it in multiple different videos, make sure that if you're using a standard style forge where your burners are blowing straight onto the steel, that you put a baffle in there, whether it be a steel tube or just a piece of angle iron, something to keep the actual burners from blowing straight down onto your steel. If you have that happen, what will end up happening is you'll superheat one section and the rest of it won't be the same temp, and it will be off whenever you go to quench it, and you can end up blistering the steel in that area where it was too hot versus the other areas might not even quench properly. And if you're going to go through and you're going to acid etch your blades, do an acid etch or a stone wash or something like that, getting a nice even heat throughout your steel and then quenching it and getting a nice even quench is going to be a game changer for how smooth and clean your acid etching looks. So let's say you had it in your forge and you had the burner blowing straight onto it, and you took it out, quenched it. Whenever you go and you acid etch that blade, you're going to be able to see where that burner was. It's going to have a differential heat treat. It's going to be something that etches at a different speed and gets a different color than the rest of the stuff around it. So think about stuff like that. You want that nice even heat so that the finishing later, sometimes you'll have people that'll get ghost tomones whenever they're sanding and polishing, and they're sitting there going, why do I have this damn ghost tomone? What even happened here? A lot of that's because the heat in the forge wasn't even, and when they went and quenched it, it messed with the actual, quenching of the steel, and you will have different variations for how those particular or how that metal sands and all kinds of stuff. and you'll get these weird hamones. And some of them are not awesome. Some of them are awesome where it's like a nice hamone. Some of them you just have a spot in the middle of your bevels and you're like, what the hell is this? Not fun hamone. Just got the HRC testing files. What does it mean? If the 60 HRC leaves very tiny scratches, it says 60 HRC file scratches. The seal software. Yep. So let's put it this way. This is kind of the hard part about the file testing files or the HRC testing files. So if you polished a blade and then put it in a sheath and there was like a piece of debris in there, it will scratch your blade. It could be something as simple as a piece of plastic, which is your knife can cut straight through it. But that piece of plastic can wear a scratch into that steel. All right? So it's not whether it leaves little bitty scratches. What you're looking for is whenever you're going over and you are, let's say, grab one of these. Let's grab that one and that one. And let's grab this file. Okay. So we've got a 55. Let's just use the 60. So we've got a file here. Okay. What you're looking for is for it to bite. So if you can see this right there, if it bites like that, if you actually can try and force it through here and it is catching and biting, that's what you're looking for. Are you removing steel with the file? That means that it's softer than your file. But let's say you're going through here and even though, yeah, so like that right there. Is it leaving little bitty marks on this? Like kind of polishing it? Yes. But is it grabbing? No. Can it leave a little scratch? Yes. But it's not catching and biting into it and stopping it from moving forward where you're having to sit there and really force it forward. So will it leave a little scratch? Possibly. Is it removing steel? If it's not, then you're good. But pretty much anything can scratch anything. You're looking for it to skate. You're not looking for it to actually bite in and remove material. And they're not the most reliable thing, but I'll tell you what they're better than: nothing. So if you don't have anything and you're trying to file test with just a file like this, they are more accurate than this. Want to know how I know they're more accurate than this? Because if you go right now and you try and find the HRC of this file, they're not going to tell you. A lot of the files have different heat treat processes. This one right here is one of the old school ones made in America that was fully heat treated all the way through. You get the new ones, they're only case hardened. They're going to have different things that happen with them too, but they're not going to tell you what the HRC for this exact file right here is. So whenever you go and you try and state that file on your edge to see if it's hard, you don't know what you're referring it to. You just know that it's harder than that file. But whenever you use a heat treat testing file or a HRC testing file, this is 55 HRC. This one is 65 HRC. So it's not going to tell you whether the steel is 68 HRC. It's not going to tell you whether the steel is 63 HRC. It's going to tell you whether it skates a 65, whether it skates a 60, whether it skates a 55, whether it skates a 50. You're going to know the hardness roughly what it's going to be. If you're just focusing on what file testing with a file like this can do, you're not going to have a good accurate idea of what you need to do within the tempering process. So a lot of people are going to go through and they're going to file test it with one of these, and then they're going to do, and I've talked about this in several videos, they're going to go, okay, it states that file, put that bad boy in the oven, 400 degrees, 2 hours, and I'm going to have a perfectly heat treated and tempered piece of steel, as long as it didn't turn purple. That's not accurate. If you go through and you file test it with a file that you don't know the HRC of, and then you temper it at a temperature that's just willy-nilly what the hell ever, then you're not going to know what your HRC is. You're not going to know what you tempered that thing down to. You're just assuming that because somebody said it in a YouTube video that that's the way it has to be. You'll see a lot of knife makers that'll tell you they're not looking for straw kohler, they're not looking for different things like that, because a lot of us guys, we don't clean our steel and polish it before we go through and throw it in the oven. It's coming out of the quench, it's getting file tested, and it's getting thrown in the oven. For the temperature that we need, for the time that we need, if it comes out purple, black, blue, yellow, gold, it doesn't matter. As long as we got the hardest that we were looking for before the tempering process, and then we put it in the oven for the amount of time that we needed in order for it to temper down to where we wanted it, then we got the right process, we got the right temper, we got the right HRC after it to make it correct. You know, that it's very hard. This is the reason why whenever I first started watching YouTube, I'm sitting here going, some of this stuff doesn't really make sense, because a lot of people weren't breaking down all of these little bitty tiny processes because they're not interesting. It's just me sitting here in my damn shop talking about different stuff, and unless you're interested in making knives, this is boring, you know. And it's one of those things where, is file testing glamorous? Hell no. Is quenching your steel glamorous? Yes. Is beating on the steel with a hammer and anvil glamorous? Yes. Is sitting here putting wicked bevels with your grinder awesome looking? Yes. Sharpening, stropping, slicing things. All of those things are interesting. They draw people in. They make people think Forged in Fire. But all the stuff that Forged in Fire does off camera, like tempering, they don't show that shit. They don't show any of those things. They don't show a lot of it. If somebody's normalizing or thermocycling their blade off camera, every once in a while you'll see them show somebody do that before they quench. They'll normalize by taking it out and they'll fan it around or do whatever. But a lot of that stuff's not glamorous. It's not flames. It's not sparks. It's not all that stuff. But you need to know that there are recipes for these things. That if you're going to try and get into knife making, that there are actual quenching processes. There are actual thermocycling, grain refinement cycles. There are reasons behind most of the stuff that we do. We don't just do it. You need to know those things. You need to do the research to make sure that whenever you're done making a knife, that it's not just a knife-shaped object, but it's actually a thing that's going to last, especially if you're going to sell it to somebody. You don't want to just... I use a lot of reclaimed steel, okay? People will tell you, don't use reclaimed steel, use known steel, use your steel that you can get from places and do stuff like that. Yes, that's easier because you can actually Google that steel and the heat treat process, and they'll tell you exactly what to do. How heat to bring it up to, how long to soak it, what oils to quench it in, how long you should temper, at what degree, for how, to get what HRC after it. So what hardness you get after the whole process. They'll tell you exactly what that is for the steel that you bought. I did the research to find out the exact steel for the leaf springs that I use. I have a lot of people that try and give me leaf springs and files and farrier's rasps and all that stuff, which is fine and dandy, but it's hard to find all of the different types of steel that those things are made out of. So I use specific leaf spring material because I can research it and I know, okay, that can be used within the heat treat process that I'm comfortable doing, so I do that. It's the same thing for 80 CRB2, it's the same thing for 1084, 1080. A lot of those steels have the same heat treat processes, so I use those. You can do them in forges, you don't need a heat treating oven, you don't need all that stuff, you can do it with this. As long as you go through and you make sure that you're soaking it so you get nice even temperature throughout it. You're heating your oil if you're using oil that need to be heated, and you're quenching it, and then you're tempering it for the right amount of time. You have to do that. But again, a lot of people don't explain a lot of that stuff because that doesn't get you clicks, doesn't get you views or anything like that. And sadly, I don't have a nice rack or a nice butt, so I can't clickbait y'all into, watching my stuff and then me go, oh, and by the way, we're talking about heat treating or anything like that. I can't do that. My thumbnails, this guy. So when it boils down to it, I try and tell y'all all that stuff because those are things that you need to know. Am I an expert 100% in all of this? No, I'm not. Am I a master smith, a journey smith, or any of those things? No, I'm not. What I am is a guy that has tried this over 100 times and has got used to the process. And I talk to y'all about the process that I'm comfortable with. I talk to y'all about the things that I've done several times and things that I'm confident in. I'm not going to tell you how to heat treat stainless steel. I'm not going to tell you how to work with MagnaCut. I'm not going to tell you how to work with any of those other steels that I haven't messed with. I'm not going to tell you that crap. I'm not going to try and give you advice on it. I'm going to tell you, hey, you can go check that out on different websites. You can watch these other people's videos and they'll break that stuff down for you. But I'm not going to BS anybody into certain things. It doesn't help me and it doesn't help y'all. So all the information that I try and do in these videos are all things within I'm comfortable teaching y'all about, and then going from there. The last thing I need y'all to do is listen to me tell y'all something that's wrong, go and try and replicate it, and then put out something that is garbage. Not cool with that. And if I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know, and then I'm going to go research it and figure it out. So it's just something I like to do, and I really think that more YouTubers should do it. There's a lot of knife makers that make beautiful knives, that do a lot of awesome stuff within the knife making community, but doing videos like this, it's not huge. It doesn't get a ton of revenue or anything like that. I don't care. I'm here for y'all. I like talking with y'all, and I like doing this thing, so we're just going to keep doing it. It has been an hour and 8 minutes. Holy crap. Hey, I'll tell you something. I might as well wear a kilt. Half the time that I'm in here, y'all see it all the time. Shorts and some Hey Dudes. That's about what my attire is. And the funny thing is, I've got an apron. I never use it. Partially because it's not a very good apron. If I got one of those really nice leather ones, I would probably wear that more often. But it's just a little apron that gets in the way more than anything because it doesn't actually fit very well. So I don't know. One of these days I might get somebody to make me one of those leather aprons or something like that. We don't know. Guys, one of the things that I'm going to tell you before I end up shutting it down, I've got a fellow knife maker on Instagram that is actually sending me a billet, a Damascus billet that's big enough for me to make an integral knife out of. I'm going to end up forging an integral chef's knife out of it, so y'all are going to get to see a Damascus integral and all that. It's a little collaboration that we're doing, so I'm excited about that one. I'm going to end up having that on here. Oh, and for the 9 people that are on here right now, just figured I'd let y'all know that one of the next knives that we're building is a giveaway knife. The one for the 35,000 subscribers. I'm finally at a point to where I'm going to be making it, and we are going to make a nice little dagger. So I'm going to do a giveaway for forged dagger. It's going to be nice and everything like that. It's not going to be a small dagger. It's definitely not going to be. You can EDC it if you want to EDC it. Do your thing, but it's probably going to be. I don't know if it's going to be that big, but it's going to be close to that big. And I think y'all are going to like it. So that's going to be the giveaway knife that I do next, and I think y'all are gonna like it. Yeah, Matt, you're the reason why I'm doing a dagger. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and that'll be y'all's giveaway knife. I it's a very easy way to enter in to win that thing. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to go to my website and buy like shirts and get points to do a thing or anything like that. All you got to do is, do simple things that I'll talk about in the actual video that we do for that. So I didn't want y'all to think that I forgot about that. I told everybody to decide or to help me to figure out what they wanted to do, and I tallied everything that was said in there. It was the dagger slightly edged out a bowie. So it was either going to be a dagger or a bowie or a Nesmith knife. If y'all have never seen those, I've made a couple of those. And what slightly edged it out was the dagger. So we're going to be doing that. And I haven't decided exactly the dagger, but I kind of want to do an Arkansas toothpick. If y'all have ever seen one of those, that's the reason why I was saying it might be that size. Because if y'all have seen those, it's like the bowie of the daggers. So if y'all like that and y'all want me to make one of those, let me know. But guys, it's been an hour and 11 minutes. I'm going to go inside and get some food and then come back out here and quench that puppy. Y'all have an amazing day. Y'all stay safe out there, and I'll catch y'all next time.